Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Live from Super Soul Farm, this is our Wisdom of the Sages daily yoga podcast with your host Raghunath and co-host and senior educator at the Bhakti Center in New York City, Kaustubha. Welcome to our show. Welcome, everyone. This is a Wisdom of the Sages, a daily study of yoga wisdom literature, focusing on Srimad-bhagavatam. Fantastic for yoga teachers, fans of yoga culture who want to add spiritual direction and upgrade their life. And today is a special day because it is
Makeover Monday.
It's Makeover Monday. What happens on Makeover Monday? Let's see. Makeover Monday. Whatever happened, here's what we say about Makeover Monday. Makeover Monday. Whatever happened last week is over. Makeover Monday is a day to start thinking of who I am going to become this week. Explicitly, I'm going to write down my spiritual goals. I'm going to refer to that list every morning. And it's from doing these things on a regular basis, we create an attachment to them and we start to notice our transformation. So sometimes we start like a good week and things fall apart. And due to some habits I'm attached to, I can't pull myself out of that rut. And I just feel like, forget it. Every Monday we have a chance to check in with ourselves, who we are, what we want to become, what is the highest version of ourselves, and rework it. 12-step programs say one day at a time. We say 1 week at a time. Take it 1 week at a time. If that's too much, you take it 1 day at a time. That's too much, you take it one breath at a time. But basically, we're having our New Year's resolution every Monday, get back on track. I was doing great, and I just sort of went off the rails a little bit. I lost my cool a few times. I wish I could take that back. I wish I could, what's it called? Command Z, undo that. And did a little late night binging. Don't want to be that guy anymore. I'm sick of that guy version of myself. Late night peanut butter jelly, peanut butter jelly, peanut butter jelly. That goes back and forth for hours until the entire thing is gone.
Well, there's a lot
jars of empty jelly jars everywhere. Just empty jelly.
That's what you do? I saw
What are my weaknesses? Yes, if you want to know, Kaustubha. Yeah. That's where Raghunath gets real dark.
I see there's a lot of action on the Makeover Monday thread on the Discord thing.
The Makeover Monday thread on our Discord. If you're not part of our little Patreon party, you can join Patreon and support us. Patreon is, this is a listener-supported podcast. That sounds like NPR. This is a listener-supported podcast. And if you'd like to join that little party, we have a whole Discord group. And on that Discord group, we talk about different topics like mantras, kirtans,
food,
recipes, just general stuff. And there's a whole Makeover Monday thread where people are really sort of like coaching each other, helping each other let go of bad attachments. It's quite beautiful to see where that went in 1 week because we just started that thread of Makeover Monday last week.
All right.
So yeah, keep it going, people. I'm inspired. I check in with it all the time.
There's something important we got to mention about yesterday. What happened yesterday?
Zoom somehow blotched up.
I think
so we didn't get
across America and UK, there was a lot of problems with Zoom. So we were trying to do our interview with Satchidananda Swami.
Yeah.
And we got it up, but we weren't able to let everyone's sitting there in the waiting room. We were trying to let you in and it just wasn't working. So eventually we realized that Zoom was screwed up, but apparently it's working again now. We've rescheduled Satchidananda Swami's interview for tomorrow morning. This is important to note down. Satchidananda Swami will be interviewed tomorrow, but it will be at the 8 a.m. time slot, 8 a.m. Eastern time.
So there won't be a 5 a.m. show. It goes right to 8 a.m. It's Sleepin' Tuesday.
There you go. So we will have Satchidananda Maharaj for an interview tomorrow at 8 a.m. for everyone. And then for Patreon members, we're bringing him back on Thursday at 11 a.m. for a meditation and questions and answers, where he will answer your questions.
That is very cool. Was anyone like off keel, off kilter, lost because the show was canceled yesterday? I was walking on the streets, pale face like a zombie. I'm really addicted to this show now. Who is that man walking the streets? That's Raghunath. The podcast was canceled today.
Now, did we want to read this letter we got this morning?
Sure. It's sometimes nice to check in with a letter.
We got a nice letter. We're getting lots of letters and comments. We read them all.
We're
We're trying to get better at promptly answering them, but know for certain that we read and appreciate them.
Yeah.
This is a nice letter that we got just this morning from Andrew in Scotland. It says, "Greetings to you from Scotland." Can you say that in a Scottish accent?
You know, my Scotland accent is not good.
Really?
My daughter's pretty good at it.
Whenever you do accents, it always sounds Romanian. It doesn't matter if you're doing Italian, Russian. It always sounds Romanian.
I'm not good at accents.
Okay. So greetings from Scotland. He says, "I'm one of the others and have listened to every podcast since hearing Raghunath on Joe Rogan. Your podcast has been inspirational for me. I have started rising early to engage in daily japa and reading the Bhagavad Gita. Since taking shelter in Krishna, I've been able to give up on alcohol, something which I have used as a crutch in the past, and drinking became a habit. Since beginning my sadhana, my spiritual practice, abstinence required no effort on my part." Very interesting, right? We have these kind of lower tastes in life, and you try to give them up, it doesn't work. But when you develop a higher taste, something spiritual, some connection to Bhagavad Gita and chanting the holy, then without any effort on his part, he gave them up.
Wow, that's beautiful.
I simply lost the taste for it then. And then I realized how it would negatively affect my spirit. Oh, I see what you're saying. I simply lost the taste for it when I realized how it would negatively affect my spiritual practice and connection to Krishna. I feel myself becoming more, this is real nice. I feel myself becoming more compassionate towards others. And this has helped me as a nurse to care more fully for my patients. Thank you all so much for sharing your podcast daily. I look forward to listening to everyone. So thank you so much, Andrew, for that. And to me, this is just a reconfirmation. What we're talking about is a spiritual process here. It's not about joining a religion or joining a club or anything like that. It's about self-transformation. And Andrew's show, he's a person, he's new to this. He heard the Joe Rogan show and then started tuning in and began to practice. And already it's giving him some level of transformation where he's losing taste for lower things, developing a taste for higher things, and his character is becoming more compassionate with others. This is like real transformation. Love it. Thank you.
A lot of times these swamis, including Prabhupada, would say, it's a scientific process. And there would be pushback from like the scientific community. But it's a science where you have to enter the experiment. If I say hydrogen and oxygen make water, you can't prove that to me unless I walk into the laboratory. So we have to walk into the laboratory. If you want to do it, you apply the principles to life. You take up a practice of chanting or meditation, and then you can notice it in you. It's that simple. There's the scientific process right there. And it will happen for everybody because, but part of it is you have to go in there with an open heart and an open mind, and you have to shed a little bit of arrogance. And then all of a sudden you'll see like that, you will notice divine energy directing you. It's not something I'm just making up or trying to convince you of. You can convince yourself of it. I don't have to preach it. You'll convince yourself of it by practicing it. But we have to enter that experiment ourselves, and we have to apply this stuff, or else it remains just sort of like stuff in a museum. Like, oh, that's what they do. That's what they feel. That's jump in 2 feet. Congratulations.
Right. Speaking of jumping in, you ready to jump in the Bhagavatam?
I'm ready to jump in.
Right.
These are our morning invocations in appreciation of the Bhagavatam. Narayanam namaskritya naram chaiva narotamam devim saraswatim vyasam tato jayam mudiraye. Before reciting the Srimad-bhagavatam, which is the very means of conquest, one should offer respectful obeisances to the personality of Godhead, Narayan, unto Narayan Rishi, the supermost human being, unto Mother Saraswati, the goddess of learning, and to Srila Vyasadeva, the author. Nasta priyeshva badreshu nityam bhagavat sevaya bhagavati utamashloki bhaktir bhavati naishtaki. By regular attendance in classes on the Bhagavatam and by rendering service to the pure devotee, all that is troublesome to the heart is almost completely destroyed, and loving service to the personality of Godhead, who is praised with transcendental songs, is established as an irrevocable fact. Om Jnana-tamarandasya Gyananjana Salakaya Chaksurun Milatam Yena Tasma Shri Gurave Namaha. Reading from the Srimad-bhagavatam, Canto 1, Chapter 12.
Yeah, a new chapter.
New chapter, verse 1, the birth of Emperor Parikshit. We have a Parikshit on the show listening right now from the Netherlands.
We do. So, what we'll do here is we'll cover some sections. Like, let's just read text 1 through 3.
Okay.
And then we'll go back and dip into some of the commentary. So this way, I think we can get the flow a little bit more.
You've been using that study guide, haven't you?
Yeah, I mean, it just makes sense, I think. I always use study guides and stuff, but I was thinking, why don't we apply it a little bit in the show? Otherwise, the verses
You'll
get so
lose the flow.
separated. You lose the thread. So let's read the first 3 verses and then go back and dip in. You want to do that?
Yeah. Text 1. The sage Shaunaka said, so just to bring us back, there is a great sage named Shaunaka, and he's speaking to many, many, many great liberated souls. And he's like the chief most, and this is where a conversation is happening. The great sage Shaunaka said, the womb of Uttara, mother of Maharaj Parikshit, was spoiled by the dreadful and invincible Brahmastra weapon released by Ashvatthama. But Maharaj Parikshit was saved by the Supreme Lord. Now, if you're new to the show and just tuning in, that makes no sense whatsoever. But I'm going to should we explain that or just read those first 3?
Sure.
Explain it?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, sure.
Okay, so Uttara, by the way, is the daughter-in-law of Arjuna fame from the Bhagavad Gita. The womb of Uttara. So Uttara is pregnant with a little baby who's going to be the next king. And there was a mantra weapon. So sometimes we use mantras for self-realization. Sometimes we use mantras. Mantras affect the mind. Sometimes mantras bring wealth. Sometimes there's mantras for health. This was a mantra for a weapon. And it was shot at the womb of Uttara. Why? Because this next child was going to be the heir to the kingdom, and he was going to continue the dynasty, and a war had just ended. So it was like a last-ditch terrorist attack to ruin the Pandava dynasty by this person named Ashvatthama. But Parikshit was saved by the Supreme Lord. So Uttara said these beautiful prayers. Lord Vishnu came and protected the child within the womb. Text 2. How the great Emperor Parikshit, who was a highly intelligent and great devotee, how was the great Emperor Parikshit, who is a highly intelligent and great devotee, born in that womb?
They shot the Brahmastra weapon at it. How was he born there if that happened?
Okay, how was he born? Right, I got it now. How did his death take place, and what did he achieve after his death? So just by inquiring about these great souls, we learn so much about life, about spiritual life. We all respectfully want to hear about this great king, Maharaj Parikshit, to whom Sukadeva Goswami imparted transcendental knowledge to. Please speak on this matter. So this was like the original conversation. There was this liberated young son of Vyasadeva named Sukadeva Goswami. And he was the speaker to this king, who was this baby in the womb. And the king's death was very, very glorious because he was prepared to really take in all this transcendental wisdom. And Sukadeva Goswami spoke so freely, and he was respected as this liberated soul. So just by inquiring about this king, we're going to hear about his birth and how he was saved, and we're going to hear about his death. We learn so much in the witnessing of this great soul's life. So we're we're going to do 4. You want to go back and hit those?
No, so let's read the commentary to text number 1, and that's also going to help kind of set the scene a bit.
Okay, great.
Shall I read it? Shall you read it?
When do you read it?
Okay. The sages assembled in the forest of Naimisharanya inquired from Sutta Goswami about the birth of Maharaj Parikshit. So that was done earlier in the book. We would have read this. Tell us, you're going to tell us the whole story of the Bhagavatam, which was a conversation between Sukadeva Goswami and Maharaj Parikshit. Tell us about how Parikshit was born, why he's such a special person and all that. So they asked that. The sages assembled in the forest of Naimisharanya inquired from Sutta Goswami about the birth of Maharaj Parikshit. But in the course of the narration, other topics came up, and these are the topics that we've been reading about for the past weeks. For instance, but in the course of the narration, other topics like the release of the Brahmastra by the son of Drona, his punishment by Arjuna, Queen Kunti Dev's prayers, the Pandava's visit to the place where Bhishma Dev was lying, his prayers, Bhishma Dev's prayers, and thereafter the Lord's departure for Dwarka were discussed. So that's what we've been reading the past few chapters, all that stuff. But now we're getting back to the question that the sages had. Tell us about the birth of Maharaj Parikshit, because he's the person that Bhagavatam has spoken to. He's the questioner, the person hearing Bhagavatam. Let's get back to him. Tell us about him. Okay. The sages were absorbed in hearing such descriptions, but now they wanted to turn to the original topic, and thus the inquiry was made by Shaunaka Rishi. So the subject of the release of the Brahmastra weapon by Ashvatthama is renewed. Okay, so now we're going to go, in this chapter, we're going to hear more about how Ashvatthama shot that weapon at Uttara's womb and what happened and how Maharaj Parikshit was saved in that womb. Okay, so that's the commentary to text 1. And then I want to also read the commentary to text 3. The text again is the sages of Naimisharanya are speaking to Sutta Goswami, and they say, we all respectfully want to hear about him, Maharaj Parikshit, to whom Shukadeva Goswami imparted transcendental knowledge. Please speak on this matter. Now, what Srila Prabhupada is going to do in this commentary is he's going to speak about how transcendental knowledge is passed from one person to another person. And he's going to kind of try to cut through a lot of the sentimentality or a lot of the kind of silliness that kind of can get caught, people can get caught up in.
Sure.
And show that there's a tradition here. It's a real tradition. It's a real science. This is how it works. Don't get fooled by other stuff. This is you can hear right here in the authentic text on this kind of thing. So that's what he'll try to highlight in this commentary. You want to read it? Shall I read it? You want to take it, Raghu?
I'll take it.
Take it.
Sukadeva, we'll just volley it back and forth.
All right.
Sukadeva Goswami imparted transcendental knowledge to Maharaj Parikshit during the remaining 7 days of his life. It's 7 days to live.
Yeah. He was
Maharaj,
cursed, and he knew that he would die on the 7th day.
And it's one of those things, again, in spiritual life, the curse is a blessing. So for a devotee who knows I have 7 days to live, now I'm going to get real focused. Everyone, all of us, we're all going to die. But it's sort of like an arrow, like we never know when. But if you actually know, you'd be like, what am I doing? And so that's why that's why people who practice spiritual life, they're always sort of keeping their temporality at the forefront of their mind, and not to be depressed, but to really make them not waste a moment, not live with regrets, not live with unfinished business, not live with, I forgot to really tell that person how much I love them, how much I appreciate them. I want to actually be ready to leave today if I have to. If I have to be called to leave my body today, I want to be completely prepared. I don't want to have any resentment in my heart, right? These are all the things I want to like make my bed before I leave. So in those 7 days, he's like, this is a blessing. It's not a curse. It's a blessing. I have 7 days. I'm going to leave. I'm going to zip up my own whole kingdom, wrap up all my business, install my son on the throne. I'm going to find a guru. I'm going to fully take shelter of this guru. I'm not going to waste a moment. Sukadeva Goswami imparted transcendental knowledge to Maharaj Parikshit during the remaining 7 days of his life, and Maharaj Parikshit heard from him properly, just like an ardent student. The effect of such a bona fide hearing and chanting of Srimad-bhagavatam was equally shared by both the hearer and the chanter. Both of them were benefited. Out of the 9 different transcendental means of devotional service to the Lord prescribed in the Bhagavatam, either all of them, or some of them, or even one of them are equally beneficial if properly discharged. So there's so many different, the 9.
I was going to say, you know the verse?
Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu Smarnam, Dasyam, Sakyam, Atmanavedanam.
Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu Smarnam, Padasevanam, Archanam, Vandanam,
There you go.
Dasyam, Sakyam, Atmanavedanam. This is a verse that the little boy, Sri Prahlad, will speak to his father, the evil yogi, Hiranyakashipu, when he's asked, what did you learn, in school today? What is worth learning? And he says, there's these 9 ways to serve Lord Vishnu. Shravanam,
What we're doing now.
Yeah, hearing.
We're
Kirtanam,
hearing.
Glorifying. We're actually doing both, right? It's Shravanam and Kirtanam.
We're hearing and we're speaking.
Glorifying, yeah. Smarnam, meditation. Or
Remembering,
meditation.
For people practicing bhakti, especially these Zoomers and people listening as the others, we remember during the course of the day, we remember Krishna. Even truthfully, even the distraction of an iPhone, when that little Discord button pops up, it's like I'm remembering, we're having conversations about our own spiritual evolution. And that smaranam is a type of bhakti. What do you think of that?
It is. And also that word smarnam, when it says to remember, it's also indicating like a deep level of meditation, right? Like within your mind, you recall something, you meditate on, you go very deep. So like smarnam often refers to meditating on Krishna's pastimes, Krishna's leelas.
It wasn't just checking my iPhone. That wasn't smarnam. I was trying to make that smarnam. He had to correct me.
Well, I mean,
Checking my Discord message group is not smarnam.
Smarnam is actually, you see, like hearing and chanting are these 2 channels that are really available to us. And if one can practice hearing and chanting really well in life, then at a certain point we may become accomplished at smarnam, at being able to meditate on these pastimes without the mind being distracted to so many other things. Otherwise, it's difficult for us. Right? It's difficult to go deep into smarna. Like smarna sometimes refers to meditate. It's said that this is called this astakala lila. There's 8 different times of the day.
Right.
Like we generally that's how they kind of break it down in India they have 6 seasons, I think, right? Not just like we have 4.
The tropical 6 season
and so
year.
I mean, we have, and so with Krishna's Leela, there's 8 times of the day, and what Krishna is doing in each of those times of the day, and then you can actually meditate very deeply on those things, even at the time of the day that it's going on. Like, oh, right now Krishna's doing this, he's doing that, and advanced bhakti yogis they can meditate like that, become deeply absorbed in that, but that may not be so easy for us to do with great success. But what we can do for sure is hear and chant. You pick up the Bhagavatam, you open it up, you read it, that's chanting. You hear it, that's hearing. And it's a very potent practice of bhakti.
Okay, so we won't go into all the other
9
processes of bhakti,
Okay.
but I'll just continue reading.
Okay, sounds good.
Both of them were, Mara, in the meantime, can you look up how to, Merriam-Webster, do you say bona fide or bona fide? Can you check that out?
I checked it out before. It's bona fide, although it's spelled bona fide, yeah.
Can Merriam-Webster check that out?
Oh, you see,
please?
you don't believe me. Oh,
I believe
no
you.
faith.
I believe you. You know why? Devotees have been
man.
saying bona fide for a long time. Then I heard a very sophisticated person saying bona fide. I just want to get to the bottom of it.
And I'm not sophisticated enough.
You're sophisticated, but you're also of a cult. And the cult says it one particular way.
No, but that's why I looked it up. That's what I'm
You
telling you. I looked it up.
All right.
I took note. I noted it.
All right.
But if you want to have Mara, go ahead and check
I'm just
it.
checking.
Go-
I'm just
go
checking.
ahead.
It's a fact check. We're fact checking. Maharaj Parikshit and Sukadeva Goswami were serious performers of the first 2 important items. namely the process of chanting and the process of hearing. And therefore, both of them were successful in their laudable...
Hold on. You skipped some, I think, right? Out of the 9... I think you never completed that sentence. But in any case, it says either all of them or some of them or even one of them.
I said that.
Did you say that?
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Now I'm lost again. Maharaj Parikshit and Sukadeva Goswami were serious performers. Okay, now, next sentence. Transcendental realization is attained by such serious hearing and chanting and not otherwise. There's a type of spiritual master and disciple much advertised in this age of Kali. It is said that the master injects spiritual force into the disciple by an electrical current generated by the master. And the disciple begins to feel the shock. He becomes unconscious and the master weeps for his exhausting his store of so-called spiritual assets. Here's what Prabhupada says. Such bogus advertisement is going on in this age, and the poor common man is becoming the victim of such advertisement. We do not find such folk tales in the dealings of Sukadeva Goswami and his great disciple Maharaj Parikshit. The sage recited the Srimad-bhagavatam in devotion, and the great king heard him properly. The king did not feel any shock or electric current from master, nor did he become unconscious while receiving knowledge from the master. One should not therefore become a victim of these unauthorized advertisements made by some bogus representative of Vedic knowledge. There we go. You know, it's interesting. It's like, we want everything cheap. I want to take a drug, an herb, I want to have some hallucinogenic. I want the guru to whack me in my third eye, whatever. Oh, now I get it. Now I'm enlightened. I want to join a club, wear a robe, put on appropriate tilak and beads, and then that's all I want. I want to jump to the top of the ladder without doing the work. And you know what? You can't. You can't cheat the system. It's like, okay, I planted my seed, and now I want a tomato. No. You got to wait. You got to cultivate that tomato. You got to weed that tomato. It's a culture from it's like Amazon Prime culture. Like, I want it I want it overnight delivered. It's FedEx culture. I don't want to wait and put in the time.
You can't cheat the system.
You can't cheat the system.
You know,
sow, then you'll reap.
And what Prabhupada's doing here too is, it's like, like as Westerners, like most of us will see stuff like we'll watch these evangelical characters on television, and they'll be doing these really ridiculous kind of displays. Now a lot of people are buying into that, right? Yeah, like, you're healed, and people are dropping left and right, and everybody's getting all caught up in this kind of stuff. And
you don't think that's true at all?
No.
When the guy could have walked when they walked. You don't think it's just maybe a mental thing? And just
anything in the world is possible, but that stuff's all just these guys are just complete cheaters. They're just, the whole thing is bogus.
Well, I just don't know them, so I can't say it.
No, I'm saying it. So in other words, these cheap displays, these cheap kind of like phony displays of spirituality, people throw them out there all the time, and like a lot of people. Like a lot of sensible people will look at that and just say, this is ridiculous. But then we get into this space where we get into the Eastern thing, right? And somehow we let our guard down, right? And there's just as much phony crap going on over there too. You got to cut through it. You got to, try to understand what is the genuine teachings and what are the genuine practices of it. And it's not this, they're going to have all people putting out all this kind of silly stuff too. And so Srila Prabhupada, he's been seeing all that stuff, and he's trying to say, hey, don't let your guard down, try to understand what this process really is, and don't just buy into anything. There's a certain liberality in Eastern spirituality, which is good, which says, let's not, just because someone isn't of my particular spiritual path or religion doesn't mean that their thing isn't genuine. We should be able to see the common spirituality in all the different traditions. But that doesn't mean that within each tradition, there also aren't people that are just like putting forward, just bogus stuff, and just to develop reputation, to get followers, to get money, whatever it may be.
I mean, I do think there is something about the placing of hands on another and in healing work and stuff, where there is a transference of Shakti. That being said, I don't think it's going to give the person enlightenment or necessarily open their third eye.
I mean, there's Shakti. You take a lemon and you stick a piece of tin in it or whatever, zinc in it, and you can make a battery out of it. I mean, there's there's all kinds of energy, but we're talking about is like spirituality here, like changing.
Did you come up with that third grade science experiment?
well, you know, everything's got energy, you know.
Right, but I'm agreeing. You're not going to get spiritual enlightenment from getting the whack on the third eye.
Yeah, that's right. Okay.
I've had it done to me, by the way.
And I did get something.
I got something. I did get something. It was I had this like pranayam guru from the cave. Did I tell you that story? My secret pranayam story?
Too many times.
Okay. Anyway, it's true, man. But I'm not enlightened because of it. I'm still struggling in the gunas.
That's right.
I'm like in the guna. I'm in the guna quicksand. I'm trying to get out of this. That's what I'm hearing the Bhagavatam.
Okay.
Alrighty.
Where were we? Where were we at? One should not, therefore, is that it become a
Keep
victim
reading
of these
because I lost my spot.
One should not, therefore, become a victim of these unauthorized advertisements made by some bogus representative of Vedic knowledge. The
sages, it's bogus, by the way.
It's bogus. The sages of Naimisharanya were very respectful in hearing about Maharaja Parikshit. By the way, we're getting on the thread. People saying, but isn't it pronounced differently? Like, isn't that an SH sound? But there's a Bengali pronunciation, which is a little easier on the Western ear. That's why we're saying it.
Parikshit is the Bengali way to say it.
Yeah, Parikshit is the Bengali.
Okay, so we're doing the Bengali version.
We're doing the Bengali version.
We follow whatever Provost tells us, and he's the crown jewel of Bengal, so we will say Parikshit.
So the sages of Naimisharanya were very respectful in hearing about Maharaja Parikshit because of his receiving knowledge from Shukadeva Goswami by means of, and Prabhupada puts this in italics, by means of ardent hearing.
Ardent hearing.
Ardent hearing. That's the potent, genuine process of bhakti yoga. Ardent hearing. Hearing very seriously, taking it in, meditating on it, reflecting on it. Ardent hearing from a
bona fide from a bona fide master is the only way to receive transcendental knowledge. And there is no need for medical performances or occult mysticism for miraculous effects. The process is simple, but only the sincere party can achieve the desired result. That's a big sentence right there, right? Yeah. The process is simple, but only the sincere party can achieve the desired result. I just like occult mysticism. I was always attracted to occult mysticism. I want a little bit in my life. Well, I understand it's not the goal, but come on. Yeah. What does exactly the word occult mean? Occult means the metaphysical world. It means not of this world. Look that up, Mara. Where is Mara today? I gave her a mission and she just disappeared. What Prabhupada's saying is he's saying, hey, if you want genuine mysticism, there's a way to go about it. That's real. And it's not this phony stuff that's cheap. And that's my point. You were saying earlier that we want stuff cheap in this world. Yeah. And Prabhupada's saying here is actually the process is simple, but if you want things cheap, you're not going to get them. You have to be sincere. Sure. And sincere means this is what I want. I don't just want a name. I don't just want to put on a show. I want the real thing. He's saying, okay, if that's really what you want, sure, then it's simple. I wouldn't mind levitating. I mean, I want the highest thing, but levitation would be awesome. It wouldn't be actually. Impress your friends. You'd get blow your kids' mind. I would not get bored of it. You would, right? I don't think I would. You would speak. No, this is what would happen. You'd be levitating. You say, "I want Prapti City now. I want to be able to make anything appear in my hand. That's what I want." Well, I would want that too. I mean, if we're throwing out mystical powers, I'll take Prapti City also. Raghu, it is the conclusion of the Bhagavatam that these things do not give Atma supersidity. They do not give satisfaction. I know they don't give satisfaction. I know they're not the highest. I'm just saying. I'm attracted to occult mysticism. Let them go. Just let it go. Right here. It's right my last material desire. Raghunath, I want you to let it go right here in front of all of us. Come on. No. Can you do it? No,
All
I'm
right.
not gonna. I'll save that for next week's Makeover Monday. This week I want
that's the
mystic
point.
powers.
That is your Makeover Monday thing this week. Okay, we're gonna work on that. We're gonna check in next
This
Monday.
week I'm gonna stop losing my temper on my kids.
Okay.
Next week is to let go of mystic powers.
Okay, that sounds good.
All right.
All right, so now we're on to the next section of next 3 verses, or making a little section, sects 4 through 6. You want to start in on those? Ravi?
Sri Sutta Goswami said, Emperor Yudhishthira administered generously to everyone during his reign. He was exactly like a father, meaning to the citizens.
Mhm.
He had no personal ambition and was freed from all sorts of sense gratification because of his continuous service unto the lotus feet of the Lord Sri Krishna. Next text. News even reached the celestial planets about Maharaj Yudhishthira's worldly possessions, the sacrifices by which he would attain a better destination, his queen, his stalwart brothers, his extensive land, and his sovereignty over the planet Earth, his fame, etc. So we get some fame in this world. That's nothing. Yeah. People like Maharaj Parikshit, who's completely connected, spiritually connected, refined in his dharma. His fame is spread out in the higher planets. Higher planets are taking note of this. Wow, who's this guy on Earth? Isn't it interesting? There's a concept of beings of higher planets are noting people. I find that quite fascinating. Don't you?
Yeah, I do.
Like, and they're not like just looking down upon us, like saying this person's impressive. That's where, if you learn an American social studies class in junior high school, you'll hear about this concept. Well, we always like denigrate European countries for having this king and queen who had some divine connection. How crazy that is. But we vote for our president and we vote for our leaders. Here is the Vedic revelation saying, actually, the king had a divine connection. There was a divine right of king because they were actually living such a dharmic life that higher beings took notice of them. The hell is that?
The higher beings calling in.
Do you hear that?
I do hear it.
My daughter's alarm. Sorry.
No problem.
That was so unprofessional. Anyway.
One more verse.
Higher beings are taking notice of you, Kaustubha. They're probably looking down upon you going, he's doing pretty good, that guy.
The higher beings are taking notice of us all, but they're not always impressed.
O Brahmanas, the opulence of the king was so enchanting that the denizens of heaven aspired for it. But because he was absorbed in the service of the Lord, nothing could satisfy him except the Lord's service.
That's a nice point. And so these 3 verses, the sages said, hey, let's get back to the subject. In the first 3 verses, we asked about the birth of Maharaj Parikshit. Can you tell us about that? And so Sutta Goswami is saying, oh, yeah. Now let's talk about Yudhishthira. This is the grandson of Maharaj Parikshit. This is the person that's currently the king. He's just eager to turn it over to someone, and that's going to be this Maharaj Parikshit who is in the womb at this point, right? Mm-hmm. And he's just describing the opulence and just how special Yudhishthira was. And so this, not only was he was so good and so righteous and so dharmic, right? So completely dharmic, that there's just all kind of blessings coming down upon him and upon his kingdom. So much so that the residents of the heavenly planets were saying, as you were saying, they're so impressed with him. My goodness. And it was playing out in terms of his opulences as well. It says here, he had this queen, Draupadi, the most amazing, impressive, deeply spiritual, dharmic wife. He had these brothers like Arjuna and Bhima, who were incredibly powerful and dharmic themselves. His extensive land, his sovereignty over the planet, his fame, they were just like sky high. So he's being blessed in so many ways because of his dharmic life. But then it mentions that the opulence that he had was so enchanting that the denizens of the heavens aspired for. Like, for instance, if we read Mahabharata, we can see that that Arjuna and Krishna once went out like on an excursion with their wives, and they got caught up in this. It was the god Agni who said, "I'm hungry and I've been trying to eat this forest, but I keep getting stopped." Right, and then Arjuna and Krishna, they say, "Don't worry, we're going to protect you so that you can devour this forest." And so all the different devas come and try to prevent them, and Krishna and Arjuna, the two of them, like fight off all the devas and allow Agni to eat that forest. And then Agni blesses Arjuna, and part of that blessing was that he got this chariot, right? That could just
he got the chariot.
But he also sent Mayadanava, the architect of the of the demons, actually, right?
How are you going to explain this one, Kaustubha?
Well, just that, we have architects in this world, and some of them can do amazing stuff. But like in the heavens, you have our architects that can do far more amazing stuff. And, even like we see technology can do amazing stuff, right? So they were attuned to a higher level of technology, and they created this palace for Yudhishthira, based out of his gratitude for Arjuna. Mayadanava created this incredible palace, and it was like mystical that you would walk into that palace, and there's this one place that it depended on your attitude. If your attitude was right, you could see that there's water here, like there's like a pool of water.
If you despised the owner of the palace, the palace would become an illusion.
Yeah.
So if there was like a walkway, it would appear like a lake with a very thin walkway, like a very thin, you'd have to walk in a very thin line to get across this walkway, although it was just a regular patio. So if you hated the owner, you would end up walking like you're on a tightrope. So it would look ridiculous. And Duryodhana did that. And Krishna and all the queens and the Pandavas were laughing like, what's up with Duryodhana? Because he's walking in the backyard like this. It's like when people go through if you see some person in the distance and they're going through like a spider web and they're just walking along and all of a sudden they like freak out. But if you're witnessing them, they just look like they're losing their mind. So it's the same thing.
And then the other time,
what's that?
And then the other way too, that it would look like land, but it was actually water.
Yeah, so he'd be walking along and he'd just fall right into a pond.
And so he fell into the water, and everyone started laughing at him. And Yudhishthira, because he's just like so dharmic and so good, even though Duryodhana
Krishna himself laughed.
Krishna was laughing. Even though Duryodhana had done so much wrong to him and his family, he was like, no, don't laugh at him. But then Krishna's like, no, laugh. Because Krishna wanted to instigate ultimately the war that would remove all of these horrible leaders from the earth and give relief to the earth. So he wanted to instigate that. And so in any case, he had this palace that was like beyond what the residents of the heavens had, So he had opulence like we just cannot imagine, in terms of money, in terms of homes, in terms of wives, in terms of brothers, in terms of, land. His opulence was just super sky high. But it says, but because he was absorbed in the service of the Lord, nothing could satisfy him except the Lord's service. Now, we just heard, we read this letter from Andrew this morning, right? And he said, because he's becoming absorbed in chanting, because he's becoming absorbed in hearing Bhagavatam, that's the authentic path that Prabhupada was talking about, this Shravanam and Kirtanam, hearing and chanting. It's a simple process if you're sincere. He's losing taste for other things. And Yudhishthira was just completely absorbed in that service, and therefore nothing could satisfy him. Even all this opulence, it wasn't like he became lost in it, because the only thing that satisfied him was the Lord's service. And there's a nice commentary to this. You'd like to read the commentary, Robert?
Sure. Mara, didn't we have two things Mara was on right now? Did she ever follow through with that?
Bona fide or bona fide?
What was the second one? What was the second one?
Occult.
Occult. What's the definition for occult, please?
Supernatural, mystical, or magical beliefs, practices, or phenomena.
There we go.
Okay. And bona fide?
Both pronunciations are correct.
There you go.
But
All right.
bona fide was the first pronunciation that Merriam-Webster gave me.
Thank you.
Bo. Okay.
it's
well, I
not
was
that I'm
thinking it
just
might
a
be an
cult
English thing
member.
too.
I'm not just a cult brainwashed, indoctrinated cult member. No, I did my research. Okay.
I was thinking also the British have slight twist on, the tomato thing. By the way, the whole chat board's going crazy calling it Pronunciation Monday today. I don't know if you picked up on that.
Pretty good. Bona fide.
Okay. There are two things in this world which can satisfy living beings. I like when people like put the world into black and whites.
One and two. Which one is it going to be?
Which side are you on? There are two things in this world which can satisfy living beings. When one is materially engrossed, he is satisfied only by sense gratification. But when one is liberated from the conditions of the material modes, he is satisfied only by rendering loving service for the satisfaction of the Lord.
Now, this is big. This stuff
Which
coming up.
one are you?
Well, listen to this. This is some key stuff coming up.
Okay. This means that the living being is constitutionally a servitor and not one who is served.
So he was saying that when you're liberated, you're only satisfied by rendering loving service. And so if that's the situation when you're liberated, then that means that's your constitution. It means by constitution we serve.
Being illusioned by the conditions of the external energy, one falsely thinks himself to be the served. But actually, he is not served. He is a servant of the senses, just like you are a servant of lust, a servant of desire, a servant of anger, a servant of avarice, a servant of pride, a servant of madness, a servant of intolerance. Such a great way to look at it. You don't escape that service. You become a slave to lust. It becomes your obsession. It drives you. You become a slave to greed. How can I make more? How can I create more? How can I preserve more? Right? These things are not. We are not free from them. They own us. You got owned. You got owned by lust. But it's true. So we become a servant of those things. So what do you want to serve? You want to serve the senses. You want to serve Krishna. It's pretty simple. It is pretty black and white there.
All right.
When one is in his proper senses by attainment of spiritual knowledge, he realizes that he is not the master of the material world, but is only a servant of the senses. At that time, they beg for the service of the Lord and thus become happy without being illusioned by the so-called material happiness. It's really an illusion, isn't it?
It's a total illusion. It's a total miscalculation.
It's a miscalculation. And sometimes, I took my kids snowboarding this year. We got season tickets, season passes. And I tell you, the whole snowboarding illusion, can I just share with you? I hate to break it to snowboarders out there. The whole concept is in a hope to get on that mountain and snowboard. But there's so many hoops.
You anticipate it, right?
There's so many hoops. And I get it. There's so many hoops to jump through. First of all, I need bindings. I need boots. I need a board. I need lift tickets. I need a rack to put them in the car. I need to get to the place. I need a place to stay. And there's so many hoops to jump through. I need to get on the lift. I put all those clothes on, and then I have to go up the hill. I need goggles. There's so much stuff. And then you get to go down the hill. That amount of pleasure is like an inch compared to the yards and yards of hoops you got to jump through. How much pleasure do you get out of that? It's just there for a moment. I got to fly to Tahoe. I'm just talking about the local ski place. People go all over the world for this, and it becomes like a momentary pleasure. What to speak of if you hit a tree, break a wrist, snap your leg, Anyway, so much endeavor for a tiny bit of pleasure. Like that's the material world. Jump through a bunch of hoops. Next year, I'm just going, you're sleigh riding in the backyard. Finished. That's it. Drag your sled up the hill and come down. It's ridiculous.
Please continue, Robert.
Thanks. Did I make it to that? Finish that
At
paragraph?
that time, he begs for the service of the Lord, thus becomes happy.
You read. I've lost my spot.
I'll go back a little bit. When one is in his proper senses by attainment of spiritual knowledge, he realizes that he is not the master of the material world, but is only a servant of the senses. At that time, he begs for the service of the Lord and thus becomes happy without being illusioned by so-called material happiness. Maharaja Yudhishthira was one of the liberated souls, and therefore for him, there was no pleasure in a vast kingdom, good wife, obedient brothers, happy subjects, and prosperous world. These blessings will automatically follow for a pure devotee, even though the devotee does not aspire for them. The example set herein is exactly suitable. It is said that one who is hungry is never satisfied by anything other than food. Now, this gets really interesting here. You ready? Prabhupada says, the whole material world is full of hungry living beings. The hunger is not for good food, shelter, or sense gratification.
This is making me hungry.
Well, that's not what it is. Not for good food. You ready?
Oh, okay.
The hunger is for the spiritual atmosphere. That's what we're all looking for. The spiritual atmosphere where there's no envy, there's no greed, there's none of this kind of toxic competition going on. There's actually pure love being exchanged. That's the spiritual atmosphere. That's what we're all hungry for. We're looking for it in this. We're looking for it in that. We're not finding it in the material realm. So Prabhupada is saying the hunger is not for good food, shelter, sense. The hunger is for the spiritual atmosphere. Due to ignorance only, they think that the world is dissatisfied because there's not sufficient food, shelter, defense, and other objects of sense gratification. This is called illusion. When the living being is hungry for spiritual satisfaction, he is misrepresented by material hunger. Right? We need spiritual completement, and we look for completement through material things. That's called illusion. When the living being is hungry for spiritual satisfaction, he is misrepresented by material hunger, but the foolish leaders cannot see that even the people who are most sumptuously materially satisfied are still hungry.
True.
And what is their hunger and poverty? This hunger is actually for spiritual food, spiritual shelter, spiritual defense, and spiritual sense gratification. These can be obtained in the association of the Supreme Spirit, Lord Sri Krishna, and therefore one who has them cannot be attracted by the so-called food, shelter, defense, and sense gratification of the material world.
There's no amount of stuff that will make me happy. There's no amount of stuff.
Well, that's why that next sentence hits that, Raghu.
Right.
Even if they are relished by the denizens of the heavenly planets, right? Even if you go up to the highest planets in the material realm, you don't find satisfaction because we're all hungry for that spiritual God-shaped hole, as you like to say.
The God-shaped hole.
We're looking for spiritual satisfaction. Until we get it, such hunger can never be satisfied.
Just like the kid with all the toys. And then there's other kids just playing outside with a stick and a rock. It's not the toys that's going to make them happy. If the kid's got some love in their life, it's the love in the life that brings the connection. And the connection with divinity, that love, it makes us feel whole, grounded, peaceful, blissful.
You know what make me feel whole right now, Raghu?
Shakti pot. With me touch your third, with me whacking your third eye.
Nope. Little
What?
Mayapurs.
Little Mayapurs.
Mm-hmm.
That I can do.
All right. Thank you.
Thanks a lot. Thanks, Mara, for all your digging around into pronunciation books. Thanks for everybody who joined us on Apple iTunes.
Hey, don't forget to mention tomorrow.
Oh, tomorrow we're going at 8 o'clock. You guys have Sleep In Tuesday. Interview with Sachinandana Maharaj. Incredible. I'm not so impressed by everybody. I'm a little New York cynical. I'm a little reserved. I love this man. This man's so wonderful. And you're going to love him too. So tomorrow on the show, don't miss that. If you're listening on Apple Podcasts, please give us a 5-star rating. It helps keep us in the podcast conversation in this world. Look, everybody's dancing here on Zoom. The Zoomers are losing their mind today. They are wired for Makeover Monday. A lot of their makeover was, I'm going to clap during the song. I'm going to clap and dance during the song. I usually sit there like I'm in meditation. But look at Katie Bell. Okay, Mahesh and Bhavani, if there are ribbons to hand out, we're going to throw them their way.
We got Henry dancing. Come on, Henry.
Come
There
on,
we go.
show call.
Got
Henry
Julie
Flood.
Blondino dancing over there.
So, and everybody listen to on Zoom. Thanks for joining us. If I didn't say good morning to you, good morning. Eric Noble, good to see you. Laura Rubino, miss you. NASA from Ireland, good to see you. Golden Brown family, good to see you. Scott McLaren, Surya G. Krishna Bola Jai Radhe.